All right, thank you all. Good afternoon. I'm going to give a minute for the attendees to join us in today's Washoe County Bar Judicial Candidate Forum. Thank you all for being here. We appreciate it very much. We have allotted 20 minutes for each of the 3 departments today who have joined us from the 2nd Judicial District Court. My name is Chandeni Sendall. I'm the current president of the Washoe County Bar. Thank you for joining us today. And with me as well is our fearless leader and executive administrator, Gina McClellan. And with us, we have all of the candidates, starting with Department 10, the Honorable Judge Elliott Sattler. And we also have for Department 10, candidate Ms. Kathleen Sigurdson. For Department 11, we have Mr. Greg Shannon. And then we also have for Department 11, Ms. Paige Dollinger. For Department 13, we have the Honorable Judge Bridget Robb. And then we also have for Department 13 candidate, Mr. Aaron Bushur. Today we'll be getting started with Department 10. I'll ask the candidates for Department 11 and 13, please remove your microphone and your video, and we'll get started with the questions here for Judge Sattler and Ms. Sigurdson. Thank you. All right, so just to start, you both will have 2 minutes for opening statements. We'll start first with Judge Sattler. You'll have 2 minutes, and please go ahead and start now.
Well, thank you, President Sendall, and I want to thank the Washoe County Bar Association and all of you who've joined us today for taking some time out of your busy schedules to be here with us. When I reflect on what makes a good judge, I think back about all the judges that I've appeared in front of during my 28-year career as an attorney here in Washoe County. And I really think that you look for 3 characteristics in any good judge: honesty, experience, and then independence. Independence is that freedom from bias or from a preconceived notion based on who the parties are, what the issues are, how a case should come out. Cases should always be decided merely on the facts and the evidence and not any of their preconceived ideas. Regarding the experience component, prior to being appointed in 2013, I was a prosecutor in the district attorney's office and represented the people of the state of Nevada in approximately 75 to 80 jury trials here in Washoe County. Additionally, I appeared or represented the people in hundreds of bench trials and literally thousands of evidentiary hearings and other types of hearings in the district courts and the justice court. It's really that practical experience that I brought with me when I was appointed by Governor Sandoval in 2013 to the bench. Since then, I've presided over between 30 and 35 jury trials, numerous bench trials, appeals from decisions from courts of limited jurisdiction, petitions for judicial review of administrative proceedings, as well as numerous dozens of settlement conferences with you in both criminal and civil cases. It's that experience that I bring with me to the bench. It's what I put in play every day when I'm working for you and helping the citizens of Washoe County resolve their issues fairly and in a timely fashion. Again, thank you for being here today, and I look forward to discussing the important characteristics and qualities that you need in a good district court judge. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Judge Sattler. Ms. Sigurdson?
Thank you. Before I get into some of the depth of being a judge, I want to introduce myself. I want to explain who I am. So one of the major components that have affected my life was a crash that happened. My sister and my parents were in a horrific car crash, and it left my sister with severe brain damage and paralysis. This was a unique way to grow up. This family had to come together and work together to make things work as good as we can with my sister being so paralyzed. So this brought me to a non-traditional path to law. I got a bachelor's degree in therapy. I have a master's degree in counseling. I worked for 10 years in the counseling field, and then I went to law school as a 35-year-old. So this is a second career for me. The practice of law that I've done is also very broad-based. I worked for insurance defense, personal injury. I've done workers' comp, family law, bankruptcy. And in 2002, I started my own solo practice. As being in solo practice, not only do I have to practice law, but I have to also run a business. which means I have to hire and fire my employees. I have to counsel my employees. I write checks. I do a budget. I work directly with clients, supervise my employees, pay taxes, maintain my license, everything a business owner would do, which a government employee would not have the experience of doing. So these have led me to be uniquely qualified to bring about change in the court. The district court belongs to the people of Washoe County. It's not a career, it's not an entitlement. It's a judge or office owned by the citizens of Washoe County. People in my courtroom will not be seen as victims or criminals, but rather clients who need my help to find and navigate through their current situation. My experience and depth of knowledge will lend itself to two areas in particular. I really look forward to getting involved with the specialty courts, the mental health, and the young offender specialty court. With my background, I think I'm uniquely qualified to do that. Thank you for your time. I appreciate your attention.
Thank you, candidates, for your opening statements. Now turning to the first question. Thanks. Now turning to the first question, Judge Sattler, if retained, how do you see the recent changes due to the pandemic impacting your ability to carry out your everyday duties as a judge? And what or can be done so that the Second Judicial District Court carries forward with its everyday responsibilities in lieu of the pandemic?
Well, as everybody knows, the pandemic has caused the court to operate quickly. We quickly had to change a number of the things that we did on a daily basis. I'm proud to say that my colleagues and I have continued to function. The court itself has been open. The facilities, unfortunately, have been closed. So going forward, what we need to do is to continue to provide the services to all of the citizens of Washoe County that we've been elected to do. I have written 2 different articles for the writ, both of them discussing what we're doing in the Second Judicial District to provide those services. But we are really excited to note that on September 21st of 2020, we are going to have our first jury trial in the district. I'm on a committee that has been putting that into place. We've been working diligently with members of both the civil bar and the criminal bar to create that process where we can safely is the word I emphasize, have the citizens of Washoe County come in and have their trials and resolve those matters in an open and public way. We have to be mindful, though, of the fact that when we call jurors in and witnesses and litigants and attorneys and the court staff and the sheriff's staff, that requires us to make sure that we're doing everything possible to be as safe as we can and to ensure all of those people's safety. We believe that we're there. We're going to have that trial on September 21st. We've already sent out the jury questionnaires and we'll be summoning juries, and I look forward to going forward in that process and providing that critical component to the justice system, not just the criminal justice system, but the civil justice system as well.
Thank you for your response. And Ms. Sigurdson, for this question, I'll address it to you as well. If elected, how do you see the recent changes due to the pandemic impacting your ability to carry out your duties as a judge? And what do you think should be changed to ensure that the business of the court can carry forward its everyday responsibilities?
I think the court has a lot of options available to it. The way they structure the courtroom is one way to keep the jury safe. I think the jury boxes are too small in light of the current situation, but the jury could sit in the gallery with appropriate spacing, and certainly everybody needs to wear a mask. Safety has got to be number one and first and foremost. But we do need to get people processed through the court system. It is not fair, and it's frankly not even constitutional, to keep them waiting and waiting and waiting. We need to find a way to make this happen. So again, I think we can space the jury in the gallery because there's more room there. We can social distance. We could even put in plastic barriers if we need to keep everybody safe and to give everybody the room and the healthy air they need to breathe to make this happen. So I think we have lots of options and things available. Another option is to do it by Zoom. The problem with Zoom is people can leave the room and then come back, and arguably they miss some evidence. So it's important that we be able to completely engage the jury and keep them as a captive audience so they hear everything. That's why I think seating a jury in the gallery and just spreading everybody out so that we can get these cases processed in a timely fashion.
Thank you for your response. All right, the next question is for Ms. Sigurdson. Please
Yes.
describe your experience as a judicial or quasi-judicial officer, such as a pro tem justice of the peace and arbitrator. And if elected, what would you change to the current position in Department 10?
I have not practiced as any kind of quasi-judicial or judicial. I have training in arbitration, both in my master's program and postmaster's. In the legal community, I've done a 40-hour training in arbitration, but I have not done any. So that is an area of law that I look forward to working in. Thank you.
Okay. And Judge Sattler, what do you consider your greatest strength and your biggest weakness as a judge?
I think my greatest strength as a judge would be the practical experience that I have as a trial attorney. So when I came to the bench, all of the experience that I had prior to taking the bench, that 20 years as a trial attorney in the well of the courtroom across this county, served me very, very well. If anybody knows me, and those of you who have appeared in my department know pretty well, I have a very thorough knowledge of the rules of evidence. I have a strong understanding of the district court rules, the Nevada rules of civil procedure, as well as all of the other legal and technical issues that go into being a good trial judge. So my strongest ability, I think, is just that trial experience. I always try and think of, and have always thought of from the bench, what type of judge would I want to have if I was appearing in that department? I always try and be a judge who's fair, who listens, who's prepared, and who gives both sides the opportunity to be heard. And I treat people with respect. I think that that's really what any good judge needs to do. I think probably my greatest weakness is that I don't want to say that I'm impatient, but I feel that we don't do as good a job possibly as we can following the guidance of NRCP 1, which is that every case in Nevada should be decided pursuant to the rules of civil procedure, and those rules should be construed to ensure the just, speedy, and inexpensive resolution of every action that comes before us. The frustration I think many parties feel, and certainly the litigants feel, is that litigation itself is not speedy and it's not inexpensive. Hopefully we can do a better job living up to those principles that were adopted by the Nevada legislature and the Nevada Supreme Court when they approved NRCP 1. I think we do that primarily by helping people with settlement conferences and helping them resolve their matters in an expeditious way. I would also note that in the district court, we have to resolve all matters that come before us within 60 days. And I am proud to say I've done that every single time in my department. I've never been on the 60-day list.
Well, thank you, Judge Sattler, for that response. Ms. Sigurdson, this next question is for you. With the recent protests and calls for criminal justice reform, what, if any, impact does this have on the judiciary? And if elected, does it change how you carry out your duties as a judge?
I'm sorry, I just need clarification on the question. The question is asking if the current civil unrest would affect my judicial responsibilities. I'm not clear.
Yeah, sure. No, let me repeat it. With the recent protests and calls for criminal justice reform, for social justice reform, what impact do you think does that have on the judiciary, if any? And if elected, is there anything you can do to address the current calls for criminal justice reform as a judge?
I think judges have to be careful. To address the end of that question, is judges are specifically prohibited from legislating from the bench. So they have to take each case independently, look at the facts of that case, apply the appropriate law to that case, and then reach a decision. So they can't affect change, or they're not supposed to affect change from the bench. That's the legislative body's responsibility. The judge is responsible for interpreting that law and applying it to the facts of that case. So I can't affect change as a judge. That's not my role, but rather the role of applying the law to the facts of each case. So each case is unique and independent of itself. So to affect social change from the bench would be inappropriate. Thank you for the question.
Thank you. Okay, we have about 5 minutes left, so I'm going to give you both 2 minutes each for closing statements.
Wait, do I get to respond to that question? You just posed it to Ms. Sigurdson, but not to me.
Yes, you can. Yes, sure. Can I give you 1 minute, Judge Sattler, if that's all right?
Sure, I think I can respond to that question in 1 minute. This highlights one of the significant differences between my opponent and me. I actually have that real-world practical experience doing criminal cases. Additionally, I respectfully disagree with my colleague about whether or not judges have a role in that process. We certainly do. I'm on a committee right now, chaired by Justice James Hardesty of the Nevada Supreme Court, that's addressing many of these specific issues that are being raised. It's the Committee to Study Evidence-Based Pretrial Release. We are looking at modifying the way that Nevada addresses the custodial status of indigent people and criminal defendants across the state. We've implemented the Nevada Pretrial Risk Assessment, which is a statistically validated risk assessment tool that is used in the limited jurisdiction courts and the district courts. So when you suggest that somehow judges don't have a role in that process, I again have to respectfully disagree. I don't know if that was a 1 minute answer, Ms. President, but I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, Judge Sattler, and thank you for highlighting that. I apologize. And we do, I think you guys are more than welcome to use your 2 minutes for closing statements to address anything that you perhaps didn't get to address or have thought that you'd like to address now, reflecting on the questions that were asked to you previously. And I'll start with Ms. Sigurdson. You have 2 minutes now. Thank you.
Thank you. Washoe County residents are concerned. People have sought me out once they learned I was running for Department 10, Washoe County District Court. Not one, not two, not three, but there's a pattern here. People have told me stories about a loss of decorum, inappropriate demeanor in the courtroom, and lack of respect from Judge Sattler. His experience is that from a prosecutorial era, he sees a room full of nails, and the only tool he has is a hammer. It was an era of punishment, but things have changed. I promise to be tough on crime, but I will also be responsible to the citizens of Washoe County. I will use my entire toolbox to find the right approach, the appropriate approach for each case. I will bring empathy and justice to the courtroom. My unique life experience and education will bring a more holistic sense of justice. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Judge Sattler, please, your closing statement.
Well, thank you again to everybody for being here today. I can tell you that one of the benefits of this race is that it does allow us to interact with people in the community, not just in the legal community, but also in the community at large. And my heart's been really uplifted by the way that I've been received and the people have talked to me during this campaign. First and foremost, regarding civility, I know that I have spoken to attorneys over and over again about the way they're treated in my department. And I can tell you that just yesterday, I was in a meeting with attorneys and people from the community, and they tell me the same thing. And I've received this both publicly and privately. I get told over and over again, Judge Sattler, sometimes I win in your department, sometimes I lose in your department. But the two things that I always know about you are that you're going to be fair and you're going to listen to me, and that you treat us with dignity and respect. I think that's a judge's responsibility, to be prepared and to treat people appropriately. And so I appreciate all of those people who have reached out to me and also made those comments publicly about the way they're treated in Department 10. I think everyone deserves to be treated and fairly and heard. Regarding my experience, I can tell you as somebody who makes decisions on a daily basis about whether or not people go to prison or get placed on probation or get the opportunity at a diversion program. I take those decisions individually, and I take them very, very seriously. I actually have the experience deciding to send people to mental health court and veterans court and drug court and diversion court and DUI court. And I do that every single week. And it's one of the most important parts of my job, because I realize as a judge, I'm not a prosecutor. I put that role aside in March of 2013 when I was sworn in to take the bench. And if you ask anybody from the prosecution and defense side, they'll probably tell you I'm a little bit harder on prosecutors than I am on defense attorneys. And I'll also tell you that I use those diversion programs. And frequently I go to those graduations when somebody has successfully completed the program and they tell me, thank you, Judge Sattler, I'm clean, I'm sober, you gave me a chance and I've changed my life. And those are some of the most rewarding things that happen as a district court judge on a daily basis. So I strongly believe in those programs, and I use them frequently.
Well, thank you both for your insightful comments, and thank you for being here today and answering the questions and providing your statements. Hopefully they assist all the Washoe County Bar members, and they can share with those in the community and go vote. So thank you very much. I'm going to go ahead and remove your video and your microphone. Please, I ask that you stay and listen to the other candidates, and I will be asking the next candidates to go ahead and appear. For Department 11, Ms. Paige Dollinger and Mr. Shannon, thank you. And all right, thank you both for being here today. And I will just let you guys jump in, and I'll start with Ms. Dollinger on your opening statement. You have 2 minutes, and starting right now. Thank you.
Thank you, President Sendall, Gina, and the Washoe County Bar Association for hosting this candidate forum today. It's nice to see some familiar names and faces amongst the list of attendees today. I hope everyone's doing well in this unprecedented time. And for those of you who don't know me, my name is Paige Dollinger, and I'm running for Family Court Judge in Department 11. Family law has always played a huge role in my life. I was adopted and raised by parents who ran a successful family law practice here in town for over 30 years. After graduating from the University of Nevada, I moved to Chicago to attend Chicago-Kent College of Law as an honors scholar. I moved back home and accepted a job at the Washoe County District Attorney's Office, where I civilly prosecuted child abuse and neglect cases, domestic violence cases, and participated on that office's family drug court team. After nearly 5 years at the DA's office, I accepted a position at the Public Defender's Office, where I worked for 11 years, also worked on their family court team, had the privilege of representing clients in our specialty court system in adult drug court, mental health court, and veterans court, and ultimately practiced in misdemeanor and felony criminal defense. Over 2 years ago, the family court judges and Chief Judge Freeman appointed me to be the juvenile delinquency court master. And in that time, I've presided in over 8,000 hearings, and I've done that with a sense of preparedness, compassion, and decisiveness. In my race, I won our 3-person primary with over 45% of the vote. I look forward to answering any questions you may have of me today, and would appreciate earning your support in the upcoming November general election. I'm Paige Dollinger, running for Family Court Judge in Department 11.
Thank you, Ms. Dollinger. Mr. Shannon, you may begin your opening statement now.
Thank you, and thank you for having me today. And I really am enjoying this judicial forum so far. Let me give you a little bit of my background for those of you who aren't familiar with it. I was a deputy district attorney for over 25 years. I've practiced in all levels of the district attorney's office: criminal division, family support, and civil division. In the family support division, back in those days, this is a few years ago, I also did the child protection cases. I was the only attorney who did the CPS cases in those days. Now there's a large team, but in those days it was me. And I made law in the state of Nevada. There's at least one published decision, plus writted judges and so forth, but there's a published decision regarding child support from the 80s. So I go back in family law quite a ways. In the civil division, I was in charge of all civil litigation for the district attorney's office for 13 years. During that same 13-year period, I was the attorney for the sheriff under 3 different sheriffs. So I have experience beyond family law, but I also became the chief deputy of the child protection team. So I came back to child protection and was chief deputy for at least 2 years. Then I left the DA's office, and I became a hearing officer for the state of Nevada Department of Education, hearing disputes between parents and school districts regarding children with individualized educational programs. Did that for 3.5 to 4 years, and also became what they called a special master for the 2nd Judicial District. So I was a court master, sort of like a pro tem. And there I did domestic violence TPO applications. I sat in as the child protection master, so back to doing child protection. I've been a family court master full-time for 6 years, doing primarily child support, but I've done all of the different functions that the masters do and all of the functions that the district courts do, as a matter of fact. So that's a very brief summary of my experience. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Shannon. I appreciate that. All right, the first question will be for Mr. Shannon. We'll start with you. As judge, what steps would you take to encourage access to the courts, particularly in light of the pandemic?
Well, in fact, we're doing that. We, you know, in light of the pandemic, what we've been doing is, as everyone else has, we've shifted to Zoom hearings. Frankly, what I do primarily, as I said, which is child support, has always encouraged parties to come before the court. And we try to find ways, you know, to be more accessible. And so people can certainly call in for their hearings. People can, you know, these Zoom hearings require certain hardware and computer setups, and a lot of people that I deal with don't have access to that. So my clerks call in to them. Most people have phones, at least in this day and age. And of course, in child support cases, the parties aren't there necessarily because they want to be. You know, they've been contacted by the district attorney or the welfare division and so forth. And so there is that element. But everyone is encouraged to come before the court. The court wants to hear from people who are self-represented. The court encourages them. And we just want to keep doing that, keep finding more ways to bring people into the judicial system. I think it's better if people are represented by attorneys, because attorneys know the system. They know what they need to do. They know the rules of evidence. They know what sort of information is best brought to the court. But that's just not possible in family court. So we want to find ways to get people to feel comfortable forward, and voice is going to be heard.
Thank you very much. And I'll pose the same question to you, Ms. Dollinger. As judge, what steps would you take to encourage access to the courts and justice, particularly in light of the pandemic?
Well, certainly the COVID-19 pandemic has been both a challenging experience, yet an enlightening experience for all of us, judges and judicial officers. I was the first court master to start hearing cases remotely using Zoom, first after Judge Steinheimer in Department 4, who was doing a pilot program utilizing Zoom. And so we really needed to be mindful of the fact in juvenile delinquency cases that kids have constitutional rights to have speedy trials. And so rather than rest on our laurels and figure out what we could do, I got on the phone with the stakeholders that practice in my department, and we worked together to problem solve these issues and start hearing cases using Zoom. And I have to say, technology might not be my strong suit, so it was certainly a little intimidating, but I worked with our court tech IT department to learn how to use Zoom on the fly. And we just started doing it, and it was a trial by fire experience, but we got better and better at it as time went by. And during the course of all of this, you know, it's really made not just me, but I think all of us think about how we can utilize technology moving forward, even when, as Judge Sattler mentioned earlier, the courthouse is able to open back up to the public, and to use it for people to appear in certain types of cases. Now, as people have talked about, it's not ideal for people to appear remotely in all different case types, but there's certainly some types of cases where it's both convenient for the parties and it's workable. Similarly to the judges in general jurisdiction, for purposes of trials, I have trials scheduled for a couple of kids who are detained, and we're planning on doing those trials later this month on September 21st and September 25th, being mindful of the CDC recommendations, the National Council of Juvenile and Family Court Judge recommendations, and the health department recommendations. So just to proceed in as safe a manner as possible for all parties involved.
Thank you. And turning to a second question, and I'll start with Ms. Dollinger this time. How do you deal with difficult people, including peers, lawyers, clients, or litigants that come before you?
I always go by the mantra, work hard and be nice to people. And I find that when you're nice to people, even people that maybe aren't being nice to you, those people kind of come around, and it's important to be patient, to listen. I'm definitely an empath, which I think is really important, especially in matters of family law. In the juvenile delinquency cases that I currently preside in, I make sure to just having the most voluminous docket of the court masters. We have a stacked docket. There's lots and lots of cases. Sometimes I might get a little bit behind, but I want to ensure that I hear from all parties, the parents of the children, the attorneys, anyone else that has an interest in the case. And so sometimes parents are upset because we're talking about issues where their children are being detained and perhaps they don't agree with that. But I'm always just try to put myself in other people's shoes, especially during this pandemic time, knowing the stresses that people are under. People are worried about their jobs, maintaining their residences, and those bridges out of poverty issues that we see so often amongst our indigent families. And so I just try to remind myself to be patient and to be kind. And that's really, I think, what I would bring to the family court bench is it's a temperament issue.
Thank you for that. And Mr. Shannon, the same question to you. How do you deal with difficult people, peers, lawyers, and clients or litigants that come before you?
Are there difficult lawyers? I've never dealt with one of those. But as far as the other difficult people, you're going to see that in court, especially in family court, because it's a place where people come when there are difficulties and when people do not see eye to eye about very important personal issues. And also here they are sharing their very important personal issues with strangers in a courtroom. It's very difficult for many people. And what you do, I think it's important for a judge or a court master to have control of the courtroom, but you don't do that by raising your voice or by pounding a gavel or something like that. You do that by simply exerting your personality and trying to assure the people who are in the courtroom that they are going to be listened to and that they have a point of view that the court is going to respect. And so I try and do that, and I try and work with people, and I think it's important to show patience and to show respect to every person who comes into the courtroom. Certainly there are people who, even when you do that, are just going to be difficult and going to be non-cooperative. And, you can only do so much, but what you try and do is you try and bring down the rhetoric level, you try and bring down the level of the heat. You don't try and make things worse. You just try and get everybody focused on what the issues are and go forward. And you do that with respect and with patience.
Thank you. And now the next question I have, and we'll start with Mr. Shannon this time. Why should voters support you rather than your opponent?
Master Dollinger and I have similar backgrounds. We're both primarily public attorneys, and we both have, kind of a similar path. We both worked together when I was chief of the child protection team. But I would say that between us, I have substantially greater experience, not only in duration, but also the breadth of my experience in leadership as a chief deputy, as an attorney in charge of all civil litigation for the district attorney's office for a period of 13 years. I have substantial courtroom experience, and I am very comfortable in the courtroom, and I'm very comfortable dealing with parties. And I've dealt with self-represented litigants going all the way back throughout my entire career. And we deal with self-represented litigants primarily, more than we do with attorneys, at least the masters do. And so I have those abilities, and I've had them, and I've just, for many years, and I just feel a sense of ability in the courtroom. And so I think that it's my experience overall and my abilities in the courtroom.
Thank you, Mr. Shannon. Ms. Dollinger, the same question to you. Why should voters support you rather than your opponent?
I do think the experience issue is important. And though just by virtue of our age differences, Mr. Shannon does have more years of experience than I do, I would argue that my experience in the 18 years that I've been a prosecutor, defense attorney, and court master is more varied than his, as I'm the only person in the race that has experience on both sides of the courtroom. And I think when you're talking about being able to be a fair and impartial judge, having represented people on both sides of the courtroom and analyzed cases on both sides of the aisle really helps me in that regard. And that's experience that I alone have. Additionally, the Washoe County Bar Association judicial ratings were just released, and of the 4 court masters, I was the highest rated at a performance score average of 4.5. Mr. Shannon was the lowest rated of the court masters with a 3.2 performance score average. Finally, since he retired from his career as a Washoe County District Attorney, Mr. Shannon has applied for numerous judicial positions. He's run for election. He's lost or not been appointed, but for his current position in those job applications or his running for election. And this is the first time I've run for election. I applied for the job as the court master, the job that I hold now, and was selected. And so I just think that that's meaningful and that people should consider that when they're deciding who they want to vote for in November. I think our temperament differentiates us, have a warm and empathetic personality in the courtroom, which again, in matters of family law, not that you can't be tough and need to be tough sometimes, but again, those case types where people are going through oftentimes what's the most difficult period of their lives, you really have to be empathetic and mindful of those situations.
Thank you, Ms. Dollinger. And now we come to closing statements. And this time I'll start with Mr. Shannon. Mr. Shannon, if there's anything you want to add to the previous questions, or obviously this is your opportunity to do a closing statement. So your 2 minutes starts right now. Thank you.
Thank you. This isn't about me. And with respect, this isn't about my friend and colleague, Paige Dollinger. This is about the people who come before the court. People come to family court because they're in crisis, because many things are going wrong in their lives. And, you know, we had multiple situations in family court a couple of years ago. We had a judge who was disciplined multiple times and who ultimately was removed from office because of his lack of abilities. I've been in the courtroom for 30 some odd years, and I've got lots of experience. I haven't been a master for a couple of years. I've been a master for 8 years plus, and everything I do is long-term. As I said, I was the attorney in charge of all litigation in the DA's office for over 13 years. I was an attorney doing child protection in the 80s and then came back again as chief deputy of the child protection team. I've got leadership, I've got experience, I've got abilities in the courtroom that I think all go to benefit the people who come before me in the court. I care very much about the people who come before me, and I wouldn't be doing this if I didn't. I feel that I've got a lot more to offer. I'm not going anywhere. I'm going to be around for a long time, and I'm very happy to see the people in my courtroom, the parties, and to do everything that I can for them. I think that what we do in the court is we're trying to solve problems. We're trying to help people, and it's sort of like the Hippocratic Oath, which first do no harm. I think that judges and masters should strive not to make things worse, and I think that I have the abilities, and certainly I care very much about the people who come before the court, and it's all about them.
Perfect. Thank you very much for your closing remarks, Mr. Shannon. Ms. Dollinger, you have 2 minutes for your closing remarks.
I just want to say thank you again for hosting this candidate forum today. I know we probably all share the sentiment that it's been very challenging to run for election during this time. We can't participate in traditional campaign activities like going door to door, attending events in person, and those kinds of things. So opportunities like this to appear in front of an audience where we can talk to people and people can kind of just get to know our personalities and have questions answered is a opportunity that I am grateful for. As far as my experience, I think that's something that the voters will judge for themselves. I would encourage people to visit my website at www.votedollinger.com. If anyone has any additional questions about my background and experience, my resume is on the website. If I've been honored and privileged to have earned your support either before today or after today's candidate forum, certainly it's been challenging to raise money during this time. If anyone's inclined to make a financial contribution, that can be done by visiting my website. I'm so honored to be the juvenile delinquency hearing officer at this time. I love helping the kids and their families that appear before me. It's a collaborative process in terms of working with the stakeholders. Those traits that I mentioned earlier, being prepared, compassionate, and decisive, are things that I would bring with me if I'm elected to Department 11, Family Court. And I would just look forward, although I would be sad to leave the kids in juvenile delinquency behind, I look forward to utilizing my experience, skills, and knowledge to help families in more expansive types of cases. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you both for being here today, and I wish you best of luck, and remind everybody to go vote and tell those in the community that they know to go vote. And we're wrapped up our questions for the Department 11 candidates. And so now I'll ask you guys to, and I'll remove if necessary your video streams, and ask that Judge Robb and Mr. Bushur please turn on their videos. And as we transition, great, you guys are both there. Can you guys both hear me?
Yes.
Yes, wonderful, thank you. All right, well, we'll go ahead and get started with opening statements in the same format, and we'll start with Mr. Bushur. You have 2 minutes starting right now. Thank you.
Thanks again. And so for those who don't know me, my name is Aaron Bushur. I'm running for Department 13 Family Court Judge. And I think the most important part of that statement is family court. Some of the other people running for other departments were mentioning their experience in the past in the public defender's office, in firms, in the district attorney's office. I don't have any of that experience. I have experience in family law. That's all I've done for the most part. And I operate my own law firm. It's just me, no paralegals, no secretaries. I answer the call from the first call until potentially all the way through an appeal, if that happens in a case. I practice in all the jurisdictions in Northern Nevada, including the federal court, Indian courts, all the district courts, some justice courts. I've been doing this for about 12 years. I've also clerked for several judges, one of them being my opponent. And I just like to state that my focus is family law. It's, if I wanted to be a district court judge, I'd run for district court judge. If I wanted to be a justice of the peace, I would do that. I only want to be a family court judge. A majority of my experience is in the rural areas. I do a lot of stuff in Northern Nevada. I'd say 50% of my practice is in Yerington. And the reason I'm running is I see how things work in other jurisdictions. And the key to that statement is how things work. They are working there. And my feelings are that the family court is not living up to its expectations and what people expect of it in Washoe County. The dockets are falling behind, cases are not being heard, motions are taking forever to be addressed, and then when they are addressed, we set it for a hearing months down the road. If you can get into court in Yerington or Fallon or Winnemucca within a month and a half, there's no reason you can't do it in Washoe County. Again, it sounds like my time ran out, and I would hope that you would vote for me for Department 13. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bushur. And I'll turn now to Judge Robb for your opening statements. Go ahead, you may begin.
Thank you, Madam President. And thank you to the members of the Washoe County Bar Association. I'm pleased for this opportunity. I think the most important part of this race is experience, and using that experience to make things better for families in Washoe County. My legal experience, before I got to the bench, I had more than 20 years of practice in both state and federal court. I practiced in almost all of the state courts in the state and in federal courts in both Northern and Southern Nevada. And I did work in both simple to sophisticated litigation matters. That included a robust settlement practice, and I think that's important because I learned from some of the masters how to get a case settled and to do so effectively. I also learned to write the transactional documents that actually concluded a matter or put people on the road to being able to work together after the litigation was concluded. I have been asked to give CLE presentations to the Nevada District Judges Association, the Family Judges of Nevada, to the State Bar Family Section, and I've been asked to present by the National Council of Juvenile and Family Court Judges and the National Judicial College. I think management experience is something we need to talk about too, because the court is an organization that needs to be managed. I was the managing partner for several years of my own law firm, Beasley, Peck and Mattioni, and am currently the presiding judge of the family division of the 2nd Judicial District, and have been doing so for most of the last 5 years. I'm also currently part of the Recovery Committee, which is the committee that is working to bring bring our court back online, to open the court up and do so safely so that we can have business come back to usual, or as close as we can do safely. And finally, professional experience. I was the president of the Washoe County Bar Association several years ago. I then worked for 8 years on behalf of Washoe County as a member of the Board of Governors for the State Bar, and most recently have been the president of the Nevada District Judges Association. I think all of those things show a well-rounded base of experience that will allow me to continue to do this job and to use that experience for the betterment of families in Washoe County.
Thank you. Thank you for those opening statements. And now turning to the first question, I'll have Judge Robb go first. If retained, how do you see the recent changes due to the pandemic impacting your ability to carry out your everyday duties as a judge? And what can or should be done so that the 2nd Judicial District Court carries forward with its everyday responsibilities?
I think I hear in that question a proposition that maybe the 2nd Judicial District Court has not been carrying out its duties. And I have to say that I completely disagree with that. While the court has been closed to physical presence, we certainly have been available to do the work that needs to be done for our citizens. And that includes, and I went back and looked at this, since April, I have had 238 Zoom hearings. I have had 2 hearings now where we've done them physically in court. So we're starting to open the court back up to that physical presence. And I have worked on some of the protocols for bringing people back into court. Since April, I have disposed of 678 different submits that have come to the court. So the work of the court continues, and it was important. And we made sure at the very beginning that the work of the court, the most essential work of the court, was what was prioritized. So people who were being detained, either juveniles or people who were in jail, were getting their cases heard. Guardianships, where we had people who were fragile and in need of care, were going forward. And we made sure that TPOs, for people who really need to be safe, those were the things that were immediately prioritized by the court. Now, what can we do going forward, and how can we use some of what we've learned during this period of time? I think all of us are going to be much better at using technology going forward. I know that, as odd as it seems, the family mediation program is actually more effective now using Zoom than they were working with people in person. We will probably continue to use those procedures. With regard to guardianship, we will probably use Zoom much, much more, because we aren't bringing fragile, vulnerable people into court and exposing them to different sicknesses and being hurt. We can now see them using Zoom. And I think those kind of things have been very beneficial and will be used by the court going forward.
Thank you very much. And Mr. Bushur, I'll present the same question to you. If elected, how do you see the recent changes due to the pandemic impacting your ability to carry out your everyday duties as a judge? And what or should be done in the second JD to carry forward and so they can continue to carry out their everyday responsibilities?
My belief is that this pandemic should not be impacting the court as much as it is in Washoe County. Again, I'm going to do this several times during this interview, is refer to other areas of Nevada, such as the other district courts in Nevada. These courts are not closed down. Many of them offer the ability to have hearings through Zoom or through telephonic means, but there are times when you need to have in-person hearings, and they are accomplishing them. And to be clear, they're accomplishing them with 1 or 2 judges. I know the argument is that there's less population and the Washoe County has this huge caseload, but they have 6 judges, soon to be 7 judges. I don't understand why they cannot get their work done in Washoe County when Judge Shirley, who covers Pershing, Lander, and Mineral County, can set a hearing 3 or 4 weeks down the road. Why does it take Washoe County 5 or 6 months to set it for hearing? With the pandemic, I understand that things are a little bit spread out now and there's more time needed for these kind of things. But in Lyon County, Yerington, there's 2 judges. They give the option of either showing up by Zoom, showing up telephonically, or showing up in person. The district attorneys all like to show up in person. All the other attorneys involved in the cases that I'm involved with there, they always show up in person. And sometimes, depending on the needs of the clients or the litigants, they will show up by Zoom or by telephone. There's no reason we can't have some sort of merged system to allow that to happen in Washoe County. And if elected, I will make sure that occurs.
Thank you. And going to the next question, I'll go to you first, Mr. Bushur. Please identify specifically what much needed change you will bring to Department 13 and share your plans for accomplishing those changes.
This is my dream question. This is exactly why I'm running. Again, most of it's about timing and with a little bit of personality mixed in with that. Timing with the current court. It's not appropriate that you have to wait 4 to 5 months for a case management conference. That is supposed to be the first hearing where you get temporary orders to set a case into motion and kind of direct it in a certain way. There's no reason there can't be a case management within 30 to 45 days of the filing of an answer. Requests for submissions. Judge Sattler stated earlier about the 60-day list. Technically, judges have 60 days to determine a motion that's been submitted. There's no reason, and I know this as a clerk for several judges, there is absolutely no reason those submits cannot be addressed within 2 to 3 weeks. And if you think about it, most orders state, this is what he said, this is what she said, let's set this for a hearing. Then several months down the road, you actually have a hearing. There's no reason you would wait till day 58, day 59, or day 60 to send out an order saying, let's set this for a hearing, contact my judicial assistant, and let's set it for 3 or 4 months down the road. Hearings should be set within 30 to 45 days. Settlement conferences, 30 to 45 days. Trials, 30 to 45, maybe 60 days. Instead of taking a case that actually goes through trial and dragging it out for a year and a half, or 2 years, there's no reason cases cannot be finalized within 7 or 8 months, with the caveat that obviously some cases require additional timing for discovery issues or some other issues. And if that's requested, then by all means, give it a little bit extra time. But that should not be that should be the outlier. It should not be the general case, with all cases taking months and months to handle something that's relatively easy to handle on a shortened time period. So that is my number one reason for running for family court, is to get the timeframes down. Thank you.
Thank you. Judge Robb, what do you see as working in family court? What do you see as not working or needing improvement in your court?
I will absolutely agree with my opponent on one thing, and that is to talk about what's not working is it is taking too long. And we all recognize that as the entire Second Judicial District Court bench. And that is why, as the president of the Nevada District Judges Association, I worked very closely with Chief Judge Freeman in getting another judge to help us with that workload. That's why there is another judge who has come on to be able to assist, and we'll have that judge in January. I agree. And I want to make sure that we can get those deadlines down as well. What I think is working is, and this isn't me saying this, this is the National Council of Juvenile and Family Court Judges. They just underwent a rigorous many-month study of the family court overall in the state of Nevada. And that means they studied Washoe County, they studied Clark County. And the conclusions of that report were that the family court model is working. We are finding ways to not go to trial, to be able to resolve things for families in a way that works for those families. Some kind of alternative dispute resolution was one of the things that was very important. Family court is also, especially in Washoe County, very innovative. We are able to put programs together that have been assisting all segments of our population to be able to either access the court, as we have done during this pandemic and opening things up. You can actually take a picture, email that to the court, and you can have your documents filed in that way. We will open that up to make things easier for people. Another thing that we've been able to do is the Project One, which is a combination of kids that are in foster care and also are part of the delinquency court. We have combined those hearings so that people don't have to, take additional time, multiple hearings. We do all of those things at one time to try and help those families and get those kids to a good result.
Thank you. Thank you very much. All right, and the last question, I'll start with you, Judge Robb. Do judges have an obligation to improve public understanding of the courts? And if so, how should they carry out that obligation?
I think judges absolutely have that obligation. Judges are still lawyers, and the lawyers have an obligation to provide, or it's an aspirational goal under the rules, to provide 20 hours of pro bono services. Judges can't do that. We can't do pro bono cases. We can't do reduced fee cases. So what we have to do is to do things like educate the public about what happens with the courts. And so to do that, I am part of the We the People program for high school students. I'm part of the mock trial program for high school students. I go to high schools and I talk to kids about due process. I think that kind of thing is very important. I think it's also important for judges to be out and to be part of what's going on in the community, which is why I am on the board of Children's Cabinet. The Children's Cabinet melds with the court programs in a really nice way, and it's appropriate to do that. I'm part of Washoe Legal Services to help foster access to justice for people who want to come to the courts and are handicapped because of their income. I also do things like I'm involved with Girls on the Run, which is a fabulous program that empowers young girls through athletics to be able to speak up in school and to do better with their classes. I think all of those things in the public are a requirement of judges, and I'm very proud to have been able to meet those requirements in that way.
Thank you, Judge Robb. Mr. Bushur, I'll propose the same question to you. Do judges, if elected, what obligation do you have to improve the public's understanding of the court system? And how would you carry that out as judge?
So I have a slightly different take on what my opponent just said. yes, I do feel that it's important to inform the public about how the court works and to make programs available to them to better access the court, and those kind of things. But I want to be clear. I think those are auxiliary duties. I think the focus of a judge should be his or her actual caseload. If you can get those things accomplished and you're on track and you're doing what you need for those kind of things, then yes, by all means, do some side projects, do some assistance with other programs and those kind of things. But not if you're not getting your underlying job done. And a judge's job is to administer the cases that are put in front of him or her. And I, again, the reason I'm running for this position is I don't feel that those main obligations are being accomplished at this time, and they haven't been accomplished for the last 12 years, and they won't be accomplished for the next 6 years unless somebody steps in and makes it happen. And I just think that as on a level of priorities, that is a much more significant priority to address these cases than to deal with high school students in mock trial things, those kind of things. But I'll just leave it at that.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Bushur. And now we'll have closing statements and we'll go reverse order. So Judge Robb, we'll start with you. You'll have 2 minutes for your closing statement. Thank you.
Thank you again, and thank you everyone for your kind attention this afternoon. I just want to say that I am very honored in running to have the support of many people who are very behind my campaign. I would like to name some of them so that you know that this is broad-based and is something that I'm very proud of. Governor Brian Sandoval is a supporter. State Senator Heidi Gansert, County Commissioner Bob Lucy, City Councilman Oscar Delgado, and Devin Reese. I have the endorsements of most of the law enforcement agencies across the state, including the Sparks Police Department, Reno Police Department, and the Washoe County Sheriff's Office. I am particularly proud of the Washoe County Sheriff's Office endorsement because I work with those people every day. They know who I am, they know who they endorsed, and that is really meaningful to me. I have the endorsement of the Northern Nevada Central Labor Commission, or Council, excuse me. And that also is something that I am proud of. One of the members of that council is the IBEW. I have a brother and a nephew who are both members of that particular union. And so to have that support and that trust is meaningful to me. I am also endorsed by the northern portion of Veterans in Politics. And I have many other supporters. They're listed on my website, which is reelectjudgerobb.com. And I can't let this go without saying how honored I am to have the support of many of you who are watching here today. I appreciate everything that you have done and are doing on my behalf. And I would be honored to have the support of the rest of you and would appreciate your vote. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Judge Robb. Mr. Bushur, closing statements, 2 minutes. You may proceed.
So in closing, I would just like to state that it's a simple choice in this election for this particular department. You either stick with what you've had for the last 12 years and you're happy with the way things are going, or you see there a need for a change. And unfortunately, I'm your only option for a change. If you're happy with Judge Robb, who just was recently voted the lowest rating judge with the Washoe County Bar Association for 2020, it appears that 21% of the people polled do not want her to be retained. That's the lowest of all the family court judges. Again, I don't think it's appropriate the way the caseload is currently going. I've heard from many people that there are concerns with attitude and personality. And if you want somebody that only wants to do family court, who only wants, I'm not using this as a stepping stone to something greater. I'm not looking for, I'm not a climber. I'm not trying to do something else. I only want to be a family court judge. What I stated about and if you want me to get the the timeframes in line with what I stated earlier, I will absolutely do that. And something before this pandemic closed down meetings and stuff, something I was telling people that I was meeting with, and I'll restate it again today. I am guaranteeing that the caseload will get down to those timeframes that I earlier stated. If I don't, 1 year from the date that I take the bench, I will resign and allow the governor to appoint somebody else who can make these timeframes that are required by certain court rules to be met. Again, there's no reason these cases need to take years and years to accomplish. We can easily get these taken care of. Please give me the opportunity to get it fixed. And what's the worst that happens? If I don't get it fixed, if I don't give you what I'm promising today, I'll move aside and somebody else can come in and try to fix the problem. But if we don't change something now, it's going to be another 6 years, just like the last 12 years. And that's all I have to say. Thank you. Thank you again for any support, and thanks for attending this meeting this afternoon.
Thank you, Mr. Bushur. Thank you, Judge Robb. Thank you, all the candidates, Mr. Shannon, Ms. Dollinger, Ms. Sigurdson, Judge Sattler. Thank you for participating today. If you'd like to turn your video on, you're welcome to. We all appreciate you being here, and we welcome you all to join next month's Washoe County Bar Forum. It will be actually Chief Judge Miranda Dew will be giving us a status of the federal court, and she will be here to also answer any questions any members might have. So please join us then. I wish you all the best of luck with your campaigning and your candidacy, and urge everyone to tell everyone they know to go vote. And thank you. Thank you for being here all today.